Welcome back and thank you for tuning in to Naijha Speaks. My name is Naijha Wright Brown, co-owner of the Land of Kush Vegan Soul Bistro in Baltimore, Maryland, and executive director of the Black Vegetarian Society. We have a serious problem in the city of Baltimore, y'all. Actually, we have several problems in the city. Serious problems, but we're not going to be able to discuss them all on this show today. Today, we're going to be discussing only one, maybe two of these problems. And if you have no idea what these problems are, I have a sister goddess here that is going to inform you all about it. The sister is extraordinary and is defined as a techno artist. I love it. Nneka N'namdi, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, we got to get right down to it. It's serious. It's a serious business. I want you to tell us all about yourself. Please.
Sure. So my name is Nneka N'namdi. I am the Director of Community Development for the Living Well Center for Social and Economic Vibrancy, as well as the creator of Fight Blight BMO, which is a social, environmental, and economic justice initiative aimed at remediating blight, led by the village and informed by the data. And by blight, we are talking about the presence of vacant, abandoned, dilapidated, underutilized, and misutilized properties in communities. So if you are familiar with Baltimore at all, you know that Baltimore has a number of properties that fit that classification and causes a number of health challenges, economic challenges, just general challenges surrounding healthy and healthy living.
So this is your logo here, the Fight Blight Baltimore. Yeah. You said something about the living well. How long have you been working with them and what have they done in the community today?
So the Living Well really is like a social business, cultural incubator. I've been working with the Living Well team for 9 or 10 years now. The Living Well is about 11 years old at this point. So we do a number of things surrounding creating competent space for people in community to do whatever it is that they want to do, whether it is have a repast, given pre-COVID, to celebrate loved ones, whether it was having a yoga class or a meditation class, or if you are artists and you wanted to display your latest collection, or you made popcorn or makeup and you needed to launch your line. The Living Well created, provided not only a physical space for us to work together, but also provided technical support and other forms of assistance to people in community, to activists, to advocates, and to entrepreneurs.
Awesome. So you're doing a lot of things, and we're calling you a techno artist at work. I love it. What's your daily inspiration or motivation, and how do you fuel yourself to do this stuff daily? Because I'm sure that it takes a toll on you. I mean, we're trying to help people in the city of Baltimore. You know how that is. So talk to me about that.
So really on a daily basis, just wanting community to be vibrant, right? Just wanting to be able to live in a community that's healthy and whole, to be able to see, not only myself and my immediate family, but the community at large flourish in a way that is not reductive or regressive, in that it's not just a few people, right, doing well and going out, right? But the entirety of the body of the community is doing well and turning in. And so, it is a big challenge. I allow myself, my practice to stay engaged is I allow myself space to quit every day.
Okay. How do you do?
There's always just something like that is going to take me over the edge. And so quit could be, I'm not answering that email. Quit could mean I'm going to go to dance class and just focus on just having fun. Quit could mean I'm going to buy a pair of shoes. Quit could mean a lot of different things, but I allow myself space to say, this is too much. Specifically, it's too much for one person to handle, and I get to be human and shut it down. And so,
I love that. What does your eating habit looks like? Well, obviously I'm vegan. So what is your meal plan look like?
So funny enough, food has always been like a struggle for me in that I was and am, I would say, a candy addict, right?
Okay.
Addicted to the sugar, right?
Been there, done that. Yep.
So, jelly beans was my thing, orange slices, all of that kind of gummy stuff. But about, it's been 5 years ago now, for Lent, I decided I was going to just give up jelly beans. And I mean, jelly beans is a thing. Like,
I used to eat them a lot.
Even now, the smell, like if somebody opens the bag, I have to remind myself, like, you don't eat candy. So I gave up candy 5 years ago, and it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And like I said, the smell of it still sends those signals to me. In terms of eating, like, it's a struggle for me daily. I'm trying really to move toward plant primary, meaning I don't know that I'll ever get to the place where I don't eat any animal products, but I'm trying to make it so that the most of my diet is not animal products. It's
Okay.
not, and it's also, I'm trying to stay away from white foods.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's a manager I had one time, and he was like, "White people foods." I was like, wow. What I really meant was like white sugar, bread,
right,
white potatoes,
right.
all of that kind of
the bleach stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
All that kind of stuff. But
right.
Focused on, making sure that, my plate has all the colors on it, that it has, the grains and all of that, and not necessarily the typical American diet, the hamburger with the French fries. So, like now I try to fry yuca instead.
Oh, yeah, I love yuca. I love yuca over French fries. Greg, makes yuca, and those are like because I'm not a big French fries person, but I love the yuca because it's light and it's flaky, and you're making me hungry. And I can tell you, I've been following you for a while. I remember that time I went to the workout place up in Owings Mills near I think it was across the street from Flying Avocado, and you killed me with the African. And you ain't never seen me since. Like, y'all just killed me with that. Yeah. And I was just getting myself started. And I was like, you know what? I can't mess with them right now. Yeah, I'm gonna catch a heart attack doing all this stuff. But it was amazing. It was uplifting. So definitely, if that's how you fueling yourself, that is the way to go. Because I can tell you, when I left there, I was like, wow, I gotta step my game up because they really doing it.
Movement is definitely important for our people specifically. But yeah, it helps to process, at least, for me, it helps to process the things that are going on, right? When you dealing with challenges, or even, when stuff is good, just processing, movement and dance helps to process those emotions. It helps to think. I think the smartest people I know, the smartest people I know, many of them are traditional West African dancers. And I think that the polyrhythms and the movement to polyrhythms really does impact the way we think. And it unlocks portions of our brain in particular ways that would not otherwise be. And that's why, it's funny to me, the stereotypes about us being a musical people, but music is math, right? These things go together. Art is math. It's all about, communication. And communication is really you expressing what you're thinking, expressing what is going on in your mind. And so those things are important to make sure that we're doing on a daily basis, or as frequently as possible, doing things that help us, process our emotions better and process our thoughts better.
And definitely in Baltimore City, we need that. So we're here to talk about the Blight in Baltimore. I have the website up. Let's just take a look at what's going on. What initiated you to launch the Fight Blight Be More website, campaign, everything?
So in May, right around Mother's Day, 2016, I was driving home down Fremont Avenue, and I saw this, 3 or 4 children, several on bikes and several on foot. And they were crossing Lafayette on Fremont Avenue. And there was a demolition site. It was 4 huge Baltimore brownstones, like the 3,500 square foot, like large buildings that were being demolished. But there wasn't a gate. There wasn't any kind of signage or anything. It was just mounds of debris, the caterpillar, and holes where the basement of the properties used to be. And I just kind of thought, like, man, what happens if one of these children either loses control of their bike and falls in the hole, or
Right.
because there aren't a lot of recreation facilities, and to children, those mounds of debris look like, hey, let's go play King of the Mountain or Queen of the Mountain type stuff.
Right.
And so that started me researching what safe demolition looked like. And then that became, well, why did those properties have to be demolished? And that became, why were those properties in such bad condition? And that became, why do we have so many properties in bad condition in our community? And what is that impact, to us and on us? And so Fight Blight Be More was born out of that research. Really just wanting to figure out what was the best way to protect our children and our community from, unsafe demolition practices, but is grown into something much bigger at this point.
But why is blight even an issue in a heavily populated Black city in Baltimore with all these Black elected officials? And this has been going on for decades. I mean, I just got to Baltimore in 2005. I'm coming from New York City, specifically the South Bronx, where right now, for years, they've been doing a lot of redevelopment. And I've been back there and seen some of the changes, and there's more work that needs to be done. But why has this been going on in the city of Baltimore?
So really, it has to do with the fact that there's money to be made, unfortunately, in this society from pathologizing Black people or creating pathological conditions and then pretending to solve them. And so
pretending.
So at this point, blight really is about the fact that property owners are not being held accountable to keep their properties in good condition, nor are they largely being supported in helping them keep their properties in good condition when the property owners are in fact Black homeowners, right? And so unfortunately, just due to Baltimore was the first city in the entire United States with a residential segregation ordinance on the books. So we're talking about Ordinance 610. It goes back to 1910. At every stage, Baltimore was one of the first places with restricted covenants, right? So that means when you put a deed, language in a deed that says property cannot be sold, properties in this particular community cannot be sold to Black people. Baltimore has repeatedly participated in things that erode Black people's property rights, whether that is continuing the practice of ground rent, which is basically allowing, the owner enable someone to build a property, build a house structure on a property, but they retain ownership of the rent. And the person who owns the structure has to pay them rent, which goes back to the colonial period. But Baltimore still, in the state of Maryland, really still enables the participation in ground rent all the way through to the tax sale, which basically penalizes people who are unable to pay their taxes.
Is that this?
Yes. So this right here shows for 2020, all the properties that were scheduled, all the owner-occupied properties that were scheduled to go to the tax sale. And if you look closely, you'll see what looks like the Black butterfly that Dr. Lawrence Brown describes. And those are neighborhoods that are primarily whose populations are predominantly Black. But basically, Baltimore is blighted because of racism in real property policy, in real property regulation, and in real property practices.
So that does exist, racism, right? So people do see color. People do see color.
Yeah, absolutely. Even, if you look at, just looking at the map, most of those properties that were scheduled, owner-occupied properties that were scheduled to tax sale exist in communities that have predominantly Black populations, right? So these things disproportionately impact Black people. So absolutely, racism has not been on break. It has been functioning unabated in Baltimore. And we have to also understand historically, Baltimore is one of the first places in the United States where Africans were bought in enslavement, right? So Black people have been in Baltimore, in what we call Baltimore now, since, the 1600s. In various, as indentured servants, as free people, but also as enslaved people. And so Baltimore has had a long time to perfect the ways in which racism is enacted against Black people, or against indigenous people, or against anyone who is not at the time considered to be white.
Let me ask you something. How can us as a community solve this problem of blight without local government or even state government or federal government assistance? Is there a way to do that? Because a lot of times our folks may look for the handout, and sometimes the handout may never come. So has there been have you looked at other cities, best practice and things like that, solutions that we can bring or use or do right now in the city to solve for this?
So I think there are two things. I think that there will never be, we can't get to equity without repair, right? And so that does require that local, state, and federal governments repair the damage done to Black people through specific policies, specific practices, specific regulations, right? I don't suggest that we wait on those things. I suggest that we continue to lobby and press our elected officials for those things. But separate from that, we do have a responsibility to be working to heal ourselves and our communities from those experiences. So there are some strategies and tactics that we can use in order to make things to be a part of the solution, because I never want to put the full responsibility or the weight for correcting the conditions that Black people find themselves in on Black people, because we're not responsible for creating those situations. But there are certainly things that we can do. For example, as it pertains to blighted properties, one of the challenges that has left our community in the condition that it finds itself in is this thing called Tangled Titles. So a Tangled Title exists when you have someone is in ownership of a property and they pass away. They transition, and they either died in a state, which means without a will, or their loved ones, those folks who remain behind, no one knew to go through the process of estate administration to have the property transferred from one generation to the next, right? To have the legal heirs become owners of the property. And why that is important is because in Baltimore, in order to be eligible for the tax credit, homeowner's tax credit or homestead tax credit, which will reduce the amount of money that a homeowner has to pay in property taxes, you have to be the deeded owner, right? So if I live in my grandmother's house, my great-grandmother's house, and she passed away in 1980, and no one has done that work, and now I'm elderly and can't afford the full freight of property taxes, I'm not eligible for those credits, right? So we have to be, and not only am I not eligible for those credits, I'm not eligible to be on a water bill payment plan. So if I have an issue with the water being wild and ridiculous, which happens often in Baltimore, I'm not able to access that.
Yes.
If I have an issue with the roof, if I have an issue with plumbing or anything inside of the house, hubs, which is helping housing upgrades benefiting seniors, I wouldn't be eligible to get any of the funding, local, state, or federal, that is available to help me keep my house in good condition so I can age in space and not end up in a nursing home. I'm not eligible for any of that because my name isn't on the title. So one of the tactics that we can employ is to really do this thing called family continuity planning. I'm moving away from saying estate planning because, number one, oftentimes the word estate has a particular connotation, one, that we don't necessarily want to bring forward, but also a lot of times our people don't think that they have an estate. And so immediately makes it inaccessible. So if we call it family continuity planning, we all have a family and we want our families to continue, right? We want people
I like that. It's called family continuity planning.
And so in that, making sure that you have a will, right? If you own property, making sure that you have a living will, which will help your family members know exactly what you want done in terms of your medical care if you cannot speak for yourself, but also having a power of attorney so that someone can handle your financial business if you are incapacitated. And lastly, having what they call a life estate deed. And a life estate deed is basically a legal document that creates, for lack of a better terms, a beneficiary for a property. And this is really, really important because we also want to avoid probate, because probate, which is the estate administration process, has costs.
Right.
If you assign a beneficiary, the house goes directly to them at the time of your death. Just like if you assign a beneficiary to your bank accounts, which you should, to your insurance policies, which you should, to your investment accounts, which you should, it avoids probate. So that's an example of a tactic that we can use. And it's bigger than just the legal pieces of it. It really goes to us having to address our family challenges and making sure that we are teaching and training the next generation on how to transfer family wealth from one generation to the next. And it's not just about the physical assets. It is about your family story, which is really important for our people to know. It is knowing that your grandfather and your grandfather owned a piece of property in North Carolina, and he went to vote in 1945, and the White Citizens Council was like, no, because they wanted his land, so they lynched him. And your grandmother and your great aunt was like, nope, we got a cousin in Baltimore, we out. So we a lot of times think that we just in Baltimore, we just in Newark, or we just in Detroit, or we just in these places, and our family don't have nothing for no reason. No, that's not the case.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'm dealing with a situation now with some family and some land in North Carolina. And again, it's in an area that's not like a highly developed area, but it's a lot of land. We're talking about several acres, and it's tied up in this deed that it's James Wright's heirs, which is a lot of heirs. So now we're trying to get this. Yeah. So, we're trying to figure out who owns the title. And because of COVID, it's been hard to get somebody down there to do this search. So I might have to talk to you offline about that, because there's a tax bill and everybody's arguing about who's going to pay this, so it's this big thing, but it has to be resolved.
Right. Well, I'm gonna tell you, somebody go ahead and pay that while y'all duking it out, while y'all figuring it out. But yeah, it's really, these things are really important, knowing the story, because it helps to inform how you move in life. But also, a lot of us are sitting on $1 million recipes. That peach cobbler, auntie so-and-so peach cobbler recipe. But we don't think about that stuff as intellectual property.
Right.
We don't think about things in that way. One, because we haven't been trained in how to engage capitalism. And I'm saying engage capitalism because I don't suggest that we become capitalists, because that system, as we know, is fraudulent and is exploitive and extractive. But while it is the system in play, we have to know how to engage it while we're over here building some old new dope stuff.
Right.
But we don't think about how that peach cobbler recipe could put somebody through college, or could pay off a house, or could just, enable somebody to go on vacation, which we need. Rest is, people at Nat Ministry say rest is resistance. Rest is a part of the revolution, but we don't think about those things as intellectual property. And that's why this whole idea of family continuity planning is really important. We have to understand and pass the wealth from one generation to the next. And part of that helps to heal some of the things that have happened to our families as a result of racism. So that's why it's a tactic that we can take, along with, we unfortunately, until there's some other system in place, we have to engage these elected officials and we have to hold them accountable to what they say. We have to be demanding, like I am, that the tax sale for owner-occupied properties be outright abolished because it is predatory. We have those things, but in alignment with dealing with, separate. At the same time, I'm saying, at the same time that we're dealing with the political realm, we also have to deal with the personal realm.
And you said something earlier about, the conditions that we're in. And a lot of times people talk a lot of things about, well, they should be able to, uplift themselves, and such family did it coming from, Europe or whatever, but people not realizing like how we got put into this situation. And now you're complaining about it. We were enslaved, torn apart, families broken apart and all of that. And now we have this problem to solve for. And, everybody's complaining, saying we need to do something about it. And why can't we do something about it? Well, you shouldn't have enslaved us in the first place, and then we wouldn't be here. You should have kept it equitable. We got folks tuning in from Canada. Hello, Debbie. Thank you for that. She says, "Wow, this is such sad but good information to get out to the world." Yes, Debbie. And I think what we need is, possibly some white allies that would stand up and make some move for us too. If you're in position to make a move and help us. Because a lot of times folks are scared to give up their privilege. Well, give up some of that and, give it to us. We need the help. Let's be mindful of the Black brain drain. Let's talk about that. Shout out to the Living Well.
Yeah. So that really talks about this thing that unfortunately that Black folks have been in a way trained to do, which is the very early on, those of us who are gifted, whether it is intellectually gifted or artistically gifted or athletically gifted, we begin to be identified and co-opted, right, and separated. I always tell people, be careful when you have your Black children identified for gifted and talented, because what they're really doing is identifying your child so that they can extract, move the child away from your people and themselves so that they can benefit. That's what happens when people climb the corporate ladder and people be like, "Oh, you forgot you were Black." Well, we also do a lot of telling people to go ahead.
Right. Yes.
Get away from here. We don't teach, know that you have a level of responsibility to that which created you, right? To the community which created you to make the community better. And so what happens is effectively all of these dope Black folks get pulled away.
Right. I was talking to my husband, and this is probably things that have gone on in other cities back then. He said there was a time when the city had the Black doctors and professionals that stayed and lived in the city, but now we're in a time where people are moving out, so you don't really see that interaction anymore. So what would it take to bring them back? And I think it goes to my next question: what are you working on specifically to solve this problem of blight or all the problems that you just spoke of? What are you doing at this time specifically?
So several things. One of the things is we are in the process of designing or developing a mobile application that will help support equitable development, right? And so that is development that really focuses on making sure that neighborhoods are healthy and vibrant for the people who are in them now, first and foremost, right? And so the app will pull in data from a lot of sources and help folks to make better decisions, right? Surrounding what we're going to build, where we're going to build it, when we're going to build it, who's going to own it, who's going to run it, things of that nature. But secondly, we are focused on developing the Hack Hub, which is our innovation, is our youth-focused, community-based imagination, innovation, and incubation space. Because one of the things that I kind of learned through this work is one, that Black folks, as my mom used to always say, always says, Black folks are from Missouri. Like, you got to show us. And so a lot of times we don't believe what we can do until we see it. And so the Hack Hub is a space that is being developed collectively and cooperatively that is in our community, that's going to be doing and is doing dope community-based science and STEM for children, but for community, including right now, the Living Well is in residence there. So is the Black Brain Trust. But right now we're in, what used to be a townhouse, right, or a row house. But we are working with, we've worked with the Neighborhood Design Center, and we're working with bringing in a team to renovate the building and the vacant lot that we had and making it a state of the art space, because Upton and Harlem Park and the people in those communities need that space, right? And so that is a part of what we do. And then we are lobbying really heavily, or advocating really heavily for changes in real property policy in the city, so that we can that will support equitable development. So that means, like I mentioned, abolishing the tax sale for owner-occupied properties. That means creating a ground rent redemption grant for people to be able to purchase their ground rent so they can own the land under that property. That means instantiating Baltimore Neighborhood Reparations Fund and Social Equity Bond, because things were done specifically to disinvest in Baltimore's Black community. So things must be done to reinvest in those same neighborhoods. So we're coming at the solutions from, a number of different angles, because really there is no single solution. People are always looking for the one thing or the one person. It's not.
There's no one right way. You got to find several ways. What challenges are you facing and why? Well, and from who? Or not who, you don't have to be specifically who, but the challenges being faced and why.
Well, one of the challenges that unfortunately people don't understand history. So, a lot of people think that, and I've had people say, the neighborhood just look like this because people don't throw the trash. They don't, throw the trash in the trash can. But then I have to ask them, like, well, where do you see public trash cans? And who's responsible for putting public trash cans? Like, people don't understand that money that should have been used to redevelop Upton, Harlem Park, and Druid Heights was funneled downtown to One Charles Center and to the development of the Inner Harbor.
Why is that? I want to hear you. Why is that? There is a reason. Why is that?
Well, I mean, in all honesty, to me, much of it was punishment for the civil rights movement, right? Punishment for the Black Power movement. It's like, we're going to move this money. We're going to make sure we invest this money downtown. And part of it has to do with this thing that, civil rights is we're talking the 1970s. So there have been some gains made. You have Black folks who are business people who are getting into the game of capitalism at a different level. And they like, we can win by participating in some of these things, not understanding that those things were not equitable. And even if you have equality, right? Even if I give you equality today, if you don't have any legs, if I cut your legs off, what good is having equality unless I'm going to provide you with prosthetic legs?
Right.
Prosthetic legs. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So a lot of it has to do with the failure of people to understand history. So, for example, when COVID first started to develop, I said to people, this is just going to be like the Spanish flu in 1919. Black people dying more, Black people being blamed for the spread of it. And what happened? Those exact same things.
But black people didn't spread this. This is a zoonotic disease. I mean, if you ask us vegans, it's
I agree. I agree.
Zoonotic in me and stop the animal agony. It's not us, y'all. Don't blame us.
Right. But those are the things that happen. And when you don't understand how public policy is being used, when you won't necessarily get it. And so I always encourage people to study history. Go back and study Ordinance 610. Go back and look at the turn of the century in Baltimore when tuberculosis was a thing and Baltimore's health department was running around saying that Black people were spreading it because we dirty. Nobody said, the conditions that Black people are forced to live in cause overcrowding.
Can I say something about that? Because that's animal agriculture. So that's the thing, treating us just like animals. So you raise a good, because that's what it is. And what I get upset about is we were brought over here, or some of us were already here and enslaved and built this country. We built this country and we're the most disrespected. And I'm so tired of it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what are we going to do about it? Are there other cities? Have you seen other cities that have been in this situation and solutions that they're implementing to solve it? Any cities, whether Chicago,
So I think that a lot of cities have implemented solutions, but their solutions have been gentrifying.
Well, why? Is it because they're looking at communities as a poor investment? We can't, because sometimes I look at it as like, if they can't make money off of it and it's not a great investment, that they don't want to invest in it. Is that what it is?
Well, real estate is about, like much of the American economic system is about buying low. And so what happens is, if you continue to depress an area economically, the real estate becomes cheap. And then folks say, hey, we can buy, some cheap real estate. And then with cheap real estate comes, oh, well, we can do this new and fancy yoga studio. We can do this new, vegan this, or we can do, but oftentimes there's no consideration for the people who are already there. And as a part of that process, they get pushed out, right? And so I haven't seen a place where gentrification has happened and the indigenous population hasn't been pushed out. I have seen Detroit is doing some dope stuff around urban farming.
Okay.
There are other cities like I think it's Philly in their land bank, right, where they're taking properties in and then dispersing them to developers to do development that has more of a social mission. So there are definitely strategies and tactics that people are applying to make things better in community. But I think a lot of it has to do with, again, checking the power of whoever is responsible for development, whether that is a DCHD or the Department of Housing and Community Development, whether that is zoning and land use, whether that is the folks, the housing inspectors, making sure that at every level, the engagement with the political system or engagement with the government is equitable, right? And that's difficult because, again, the real estate lobby is very powerful, right? The realtors, the brokers, the home inspectors, the tax certificate purchasers, all of those they make a very powerful lobby. And so, unfortunately, until we begin to really check the power of those business interests, we're going to continue to have challenges. But that doesn't mean we can't, work toward developing co-ops, which is absolutely an important economic vehicle. That doesn't mean we can't work toward, neighborhood reparations as each community or as each city might define it. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't instantiate a land bank. Baltimore already has an affordable housing trust fund, which is going to help support the development of permanently affordable housing. That is definitely a tool that has been used other places and now is in use in Baltimore to help stabilize communities.
You're listening to Nneka N'namdi. She is a techno artist at work with Fight Blight Baltimore. You definitely want to check out her website and follow her at Fight Blight. Be more. Subscribe and like, comment on NaijaSpeaks.com, share, watch the replay, tell your friends, because this is something that we all need to be involved with. We have to fight the blight in Baltimore. Let's talk about what's going on at Walbrook Junction. What's happening over there? Because I attended a meeting and you were the GOAT. All the guys were saying you were the GOAT at bringing the meeting together with was he developer or whatever. Talk about all that's going on with Walbrook Junction.
So basically, there is a Walbrook Junction Shopping Center is being sold. And the current owner is selling it to a gentleman by the name of Lanier Richardson. He runs an outfit out of Chicago, but has done some work in Baltimore. And he is trying to do something different in that he is offering up to 49% ownership of Walbrook Junction Shopping Center to community, with the idea of helping to support the development of Black wealth in Baltimore. And so you can, buy in to ownership at like $1,000 a share. I think it's really important as a first step to looking at collective ownership of commercial, real or retail or industrial property, because in a city that is 65% Black, we own very little property that is not housing, right? So retail spots, we don't own that many. If it's not a church and we needed to have, a secret Negro meeting with 500 people, it ain't happening. We don't own properties, retail properties or commercial properties of that size. So I think this is a good first step. And people can go on smallchange.org and check
that smallchange.org. So you definitely feel it's a good investment. In the meeting, because I attended the meeting as well, and I said at the, whether it's the $5,000 or $1,000 investment, I thought it was pretty good for me. The only thing was without having any, and that's just for me because I've been investing in things for a long time, not real estate, but $5,000, I kind of want to have some voting or controlling rights. I mean, that was just my own. Right. The small, you said small change.
Smallchange.com, I think, actually. Yeah, it is, because it is a passive investment.
Yes, passive investment, right. That's what I meant.
You don't necessarily have the day-to-day control, but I also think there's an opportunity, again, this is a test bed for us. It's an opportunity to try it out. And, I encourage people, the information is there. I'm not a financial investor. Read the prospectus.
Yes.
All of the
due diligence, everyone. But yes, I personally I'm going to put up something. Me and Greg are going to go half and half and put up something just to be involved, even if it's something that we want to give to our daughter. So that, she has ownership in a shopping center. But yes, what strong messages do you want to send to the viewers? Or let's look at, do you want us to show some things on the website right here, Fight Blight, now that I have it up again? Anything that you want to point out on this page that we should be looking at?
So really the most important thing right now, we're focused on really heavily on the Stop Oppressive Seizures Fund. And that fund was developed specifically to implement the tax sale bailout. Right now, even in the midst of COVID, Baltimore has continued the predatory practices of selling the debt of citizens, homeowners, and investors as well, who cannot afford or have failed to pay their property taxes. And so the community has raised roughly $22,000 to help bail people out.
Oh, and nice. Congratulations.
So we are paying, thank you. We are paying the taxes of our clients, as well as making sure that they have an estate plan or family continuity plan in place, making sure that the property is titled and deeded correctly so that they get access to the tax credits, but also to programs like weatherization that will help them, keep the house in good condition. If you go to the Take Action page, it actually has.
That's what I was going to Take Action. Okay.
Yeah. So we're focused really heavily on continuing to raise funds. We have currently 4 clients, and our funding as it is extinguished. But we are continuing to raise funds. If you go to the Take Action page, you could make a donation. In the midst of that, because we don't want to continue to participate in this or have this predatory process continue to go on, we have been working with city council persons to really, develop an installment to enable. In Baltimore, you can only pay your taxes yearly, annually, or biannually. And we know that for many people, it's much easier to pay in small monthly chunks. So we are working with city council person, specifically Odette Ramos, who has put forward a bill that will enable, or 2 bills that will enable installment payment plans, both for taxes before they're due and for taxes once they are delinquent. So we are really focused on setting things up so that the tax sale can be abolished for owner-occupied properties, because what we have seen is elders, people who have been in their houses 40, 50 years, multi-generational homes being lost for $1,000 tax bill.
Yes, yes, and it's sad.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing that you're doing this work, and we need more people doing this work because it's really really important. And if you weren't doing this work, what would you be doing, Nneka? I'm gonna blow you up on that one.
No, if I wasn't doing this work, so I really am in a place where I'm a systems engineer by trade. So I've been working on software and systems development projects for the last 21 years. And I am at a place now where I want to take all that I know about software development and systems development and data analysis and move into library and information sciences. I'm a bibliophile. I love books. I own more books than anything else.
Awesome.
And so I am in the process of positioning myself to transition to life as a librarian. So that is in my near.
Wow, that's major. I'm glad you said that because what's going on with the libraries in Baltimore? I know we got COVID and we don't get, so is that you partnering more, or have you partnered already with some of these libraries? And I don't know what the state of the libraries are right now. Pre-COVID, I was always in the libraries with my daughter because I wanted her to get used to the libraries as a resource on top of your computer. Like, with those partnerships, would you create those type of partnerships and kind of, use those as a way of educating people on all the stuff that you know?
Yeah, I would love to. My focus when I start to really pursue the educational piece of becoming a librarian is to focus on African American genealogical research. Because again, it is really, really, really important for us to understand our family story and to understand history, because it informs today as it pertains to what the libraries are doing today. I know that many of the libraries in Baltimore are putting out, like, they're broadcasting Wi-Fi, so that if you can sit outside in your car, or if it's not cold outside, you could get on the internet. I know that, to do whatever you need to do. I believe that some of them are actually offering digital assets for rent, whether, those are tablets or laptops, so that folks can continue to have access to, to the internet. But also, I think it's really important to understand that the library, really much like a school, should be a community center, right?
Yes, yes.
An accessible space for people. But
Yes.
also understanding that we are now in a digital world, and much of the libraries, the information in the library is accessible via the library's website. They have wonderful, you can chat with the librarians and everything. They have wonderful digital resources. But most of us are walking around with the sum total of human academic understanding on our phones. And so we could really, and the library could really help do more to teach people how to responsibly use the internet, and how to really how to judge what resources or how to understand or provide an analysis and figure out what is fake news and what is real news, how to understand what the difference between propaganda is, right? And what is the purpose of propaganda, and how, everything from, at this point, everything, the news is, becoming more, I shouldn't even say becoming more, because the news has always been propaganda, but understanding those particular things. And that, to me, is the responsibility of, libraries and librarians in the context of, the we're not going to say post-COVID, because at this point, it's not going away, but in the world, right? In
I'm
today's
so
world.
glad you said that, because that's the first thing I say when the youngins, and I call them youngins because I'm nearing 50. I'm like, you got the world in your hand right here, and you're just looking at Instagram. Like, don't ask me any questions until you do your research, and then you come back to me, and then we talk about it.
And then understanding what social media really is. Like,
Right.
social media is not, you think it's so you can socialize, but social media is really about gathering data and analyzing that data so that they can manipulate what people are seeing, what people are understanding, what people are feeling. And when
Right.
you understand, when you deal with social media from that standpoint, then it makes, even January 6th makes a lot of sense. The Trump era makes a lot more sense when you think about it. Or even the Biden era. And if you look at how in a whole week, everybody was on revolution before inauguration happened, everybody's like, ooh, we can take a breath. No, we can't.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you can never take a breath.
How we taking a breath when the sitting president, for lack of a better term, is the chief incarcerator? Did day one, did he issue an executive order and let everybody who was a nonviolent drug offender who had been impacted by the 88, 94, and 96 drug laws, did he immediately pardon those folks? No. So there's no breath. You got to take a breath in order to live. Nothing. Trump.
There's a whole lot of work that needs to be done, and then there's so many topics we could talk about. Make sure you're following Nneka. Go to Fight Blight, FightBlightBeMore.com. How else can we best connect with you? Because we can go on and on and on and on, sis.
I'm definitely available on social. I'm available on social media, like you said. Fight Blight Be More on Facebook, on Instagram. We're Blight to Bright. On Twitter, we are Fight Blight Be More, no E. And then if someone has a question or just burning issues surrounding real property in Baltimore, they can reach out to me by emailing me at Nneka@fightblightbemore.com. And then, we are planning for spring hood hikes. This is an opportunity for people in community to come and walk with us. It feels a little.
That's what I was going to ask you about, the hood hike.
Yeah, it feels a little bit different walking around the community, talking with folks in community, just linking up. And really, we do, the history.
You need to do those. I need to do one.
So we typically do them in the fall and the spring. I'm playing things by ear. I would have liked to have started in April this year, but I don't think that might not be possible. So it will probably be May and June, and then we'll be back in like September and October. And again, like I said, it's an opportunity for fitness, to walk and talk, because again, there aren't a lot of recreational or fitness activities that are accessible to community. It's an opportunity to learn the history of Old West Baltimore, which includes Harlem Park and Upton, which is where our Hack Hub sits. It's an opportunity to talk about the things that people in community, the strategies and tactics that we can employ to redevelop our community, because we're not interested. Yes, we want the neighborhood not to be blighted, but we're not interested in quote unquote whitening our community. That's not the goal. Now, if we welcome all abolitionists, but let's be clear, we welcome abolitionists, not opportunists. Those are the same thing.
Exactly.
And so we walk and talk, and it is a learning tour. I learn from on every tour, I learn something, and I share what I know. And so that's an opportunity for people to meet each other and go do their own dope stuff, because I'm not under the impression that those things that I think are going to solve some of the challenges are the only solutions out there.
Nneka, it's been a pleasure. Definitely, when the hood hike start, let's get back on here and promote that heavily so we can get people involved. And I'm here. You need me, let me know. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time. We don't have any questions. We had a lot of comments, which was great. We got a lot of work to do. So let's get out there and do it. Sending blessings your way. Stay healthy, stay safe, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Again, please share, replay, and make sure you're going to fightblightbemore.com and check out NaijaSpeaks.com for all your things vegan, soul, people, culture, events, and food. All right, take it easy.